Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Geneviève Zubrzicki. I'm professor of sociology and I'm director of the Copernicus program in Polish studies and the Weiser Center for Europe and Eurasia. Today I have the great honor and pleasure to welcome you to the 2018 annual Copernicus lecture and to introduce our distinguished speaker, Barbara Nowacka. So Barbara Nowacka holds an MBA and she's an IT specialist by training, but she's best known for her progressive activism and her political work. She's a member of the Women's Congress National Council and chair of the Progressive Association Initiative Poland. She's also the co-founder and deputy chair of the Izabela Jagruga-Nowacka Foundation, an organization which aims to promote equality, social justice, and social inclusion. Nowacka headed the election committee for the United Left coalition during the 2015 Polish parliamentary election, which we know they did not win. And from 2015-17, she was a co-chair of the Twój Ruch political party. In 2016 and 17, she organized and chaired the Save Women initiative, a civil bill that aimed to liberalize abortion laws in Poland. In October 2016, in response to an attempt by the conservative right to implement a total ban on abortion, Nowacka became a leading figure in the Czarny protest action, the Black Protest, a massive nationwide demonstration which ultimately succeeded in forcing the Law and Justice government to abandon their project. For her role in the Czarny protest movement, Nowacka was ranked one of the top 100 global thinkers of 2016 by Foreign Policy magazine. Tonight, Barbara Nowacka will talk about the ongoing challenges to democracy in Poland and Polish civil society resistance to them, so there is hope. If there is a silver lining to current democratic backsliding in Poland, it may be that civil society is more active now in Poland than it has been since the Solidarity movement. So we're privileged to have the opportunity to hear directly from a key actor in the political and civic fight for democratic norms and women's rights in Poland, and very grateful that Ms. Nowacka accepted our invitation to come to the University of Michigan just when she's traveling to the four corners of Poland from Zakopane to the Baltic Sea in preparation for the upcoming elections. Thank you so much. So please join me in offering a warm welcome to Barbara Nowacka.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for this invitation. It's a great honor, great pleasure, and a great challenge because before I came here, I saw who was a speaker last year and for some other years. And it's really a challenge to just prove that I deserve a chance to be here and to talk about Polish politics because I don't have this huge experiences, for example, Adam Michnik had, who was also lecturing here, and he was one of the heroes of Solidarność movement in the past, and still is an important political figure, where I am still sometimes feeling like a beginner. Although I started my, not political, but civil activities back in 1993, with feminist movement, but I will speak about myself shortly. I will speak more about Poland, of course. But yes, for so many years I was a civil activist. Now I am hoping to be more influential also in politics. And here, being here, it's just not only a pleasure and honor, but also time to reflect in a very difficult moment to Polish political scene. Next Sunday, we will have local elections, first elections since Law and Justice took power. First elections where Polish citizens would decide if we want to switch to a liberal democracy or we believe in liberal democracy as such. So being here also gives me a broad overview and chance to talk to you with your experience, your knowledge, and thank you very much, Geneviève, and thank you very much, Maréchal Staffin, for having me here. It's a great pleasure. And now let's talk about Poland. I know you all know a lot about Poland and Polish history, but while we're talking about Poland, we should start with understanding that firstly, Poland is special. Secondly, is very similar to the other countries. We all love to believe we are so different and special, and Solidarność movement came from Polish spirit of fight, but the spirit of fight came from our history. For, more than 200 years ago, we were a non-existing country. We were divided into Prussia, Austria, and Russia. And those divisions that took place more than 200 years ago are still existing, are existing in mentality, are still existing in the way people do think about the society, and especially are still vivid in the way we are thinking about the state and its role. Whereas in many countries, people do trust the state, do trust the institutions. We as Poles used to question all authorities, question institutions, question powers, which gave us Solidarność movement, but also which gave us the troubles we are nowadays. But we are not very special with our troubles, especially here in the States. You know that we are in the same swamp of illiberal democracy, of difficulties, of troubles and questions, and changes. Changes that might either lead us to new world order where we will be more equal, we will have more democracy, more participation, or to the times that democracy or liberal democracy will be just a past. Poland is now celebrating 100 years of independence. We are not going to celebrate this together because we are split into at least two societies, society that believes law and justice and society that believes in democracy. We are also split into the third group that does not care. And this group, I don't care, is as strong in Poland as it's strong also in the States, in France, in Germany, and everywhere. Those people that would never actually believe in the role of state, participation, community. And they are one of the challenges I will refer afterwards. But 100 years of independence in Poland are also specific for women because we gain our voting rights exactly 100 years ago, just after Poland gained independence. And it was not given for granted. As in the United States, women fought, sometimes brutally. Polish women fought for independence, and because of that, they went and claimed their rights. And they also fought, but in a slightly different way. But we succeeded. 100 years of independence, 100 years of voting rights, and still we are asking same questions. Are we independent? Do we have rights as women? Do we have rights as citizens? Do we use our rights properly? Do we use our rights at all? Coming back to Polish history, for 20 years after gaining independence, we were building country from ruins to a community. It was time full of difficult challenges, but quite successful. Then the Second World War came and destroyed completely few things that were important to our country. From multicultural country, full of people with Eastern origins, Ukrainians, Belarusians, Russians, huge Jewish community, huge German community. After Second World War, we appeared to be alone white Polish Christian Catholics. Those who survived Holocaust moved from Poland because of the atmosphere, because of non-acceptance, because of many bad things that happened after Second World War in 1969. And Poland is one of the very few countries that is extremely homogenic. 98%, I guess, are baptized. 99% are completely white. Majority of Polish people believe that it was always like this, which is not true. My family grew up in the eastern part of Poland. My grandmother was there, and she was living in the city where Polish Christian Catholics were minority. That was city composed by Jewish, Belarusians, Ukrainians, and Poles. After Second World War, we were missing one of the fundaments of our spirit, this openness that we believed was building us up. Communism also brought changes to mentality, but moreover, destroyed a spirit of community. We all fought communism, but not all fought. Unfortunately, not all fought. But many people fought communism for different reasons. Sometimes it was just disobedience, sometimes it was silent acceptance. But then changes that communism did made our society that was quite participative, a society that was completely silent. Sometimes we had workers protesting, like in the 50s, but no one was to join them. Then we had students protesting in 68, no one went to join them. Then again, workers alone, sometimes a small group of intellectuals, but we never had the spirit of citizens moving against a power. Solidarność was considered as a big movement, whereas the reality is that in the best times, 20% of people belonged to Solidarność movement, whereas 80 were either against or not involved. First three elections that took place in 1989, turnout, well, it was very important. We were voting, well, my parents were voting, I couldn't, but we were voting for a simple question. Do we want to be a communist country? Do we want to live under the regime? 37% was not interested at all in the fact if we are a communist country or not. 67% went to vote, and the huge majority voted for democracy. Since 1989, we were building democracy and institutions, though we were still missing building a civil society. We were still missing building a common spirit of living together, doing things together, doing politics together. Changes brought also a neoliberal shift immediately after communism, where everyone was poor and secure. We were insecure, and the majority was very poor. Some people were benefiting out of the changes, but majority was fighting for a better life. But then neoliberal indoctrination is extremely strong, and majority of Polish people started to believe that we are not stronger together. We are stronger fighting each other. We are stronger alone, which also was ruining the ideas of building civil society. When Iron Curtain collapsed, Poland was in the situation that situation of women was very similar to the situation of men. There were kindergartens, very accessible. Every job was open to Polish women, contrary, for example, to Austria, France, etc., where women had not such a huge access to, even to technical sciences. We had a freedom of choosing upon our bodies. Abortion was perfectly legal, although we had no contraceptives at all. And Solidarność was also very closely working with Christian Catholic Church, which was the place of resistance. And we, at the beginning, well, everyone believed that Christian Catholic Church is fighting with citizens for democracy against communism. Unfortunately, reality is that Christian Catholic Church was fighting with communism, but not for democracy. And the first effect of changes, a part of neoliberal economic shift, was the change with the situation of women. The very first bill made on social issues was a complete ban on abortion, complete ban, including imprisoning women for having abortion, 1991. After a big protest of women and more than 1 million signatures for 38 million country, it matters to have 1 million of signatures. For referendum on abortion, that was completely rejected, ignored by parliament. Law was changed, and we had a ban on abortion. So when Iron Curtain was collapsing, we had a freedom of movement with our passport abroad, but women lost their right to decide upon their bodies. Many people had lost their right to decide upon their job, upon their future. But a situation of women strangely shifted to more backward and non-acceptable, as we believed. Strangely, not so many people cared. First, feminist demonstrations in the 90s brought attention of like 100 Protestants. If we were organizing protests in the mid-90s or beginning of 2000 against ban on abortion, which still is in Poland, we were 30 of us, being so happy that we are there, still strong 30 women fighting. When war in Iraq started, Poland joined this coalition with Americans. You had massive protests here. There were massive protests in UK. In Poland, 300 people went on the street. 38 million citizens of the country, 300 protesting against the war. I'm telling you this to understand with what kind of society we are facing now and why I'm not very pessimistic nowadays. So yes, 30 women protesting for freedom of choice, 300 protesting against unfair war in Iraq. The only one good thing that happened to our society was when we were joining European Union. It was massive, massive interest, massive attract. Many people believed that this is the chance because we always, as Poles, believed we belong to Western world. We didn't want to be Easternized. We didn't want to be a part of this Eastern bloc. We mentally, strongly belong to the West. And that was the only one thing that made our society strongly together fighting for something quite recently. Something like 15 years ago, 2003, we voted in referendum. More than 50% was interested. Not as much as in communism, but still matters. And since we joined the European Union, we believed it will be better. We are now strong together. We have a strong partner with as the European Union is. We have a chances to travel, to work, to study abroad, to find a job abroad, or to bring our business abroad, or to bring business to Poland and investors. European Union gave us a lot of money to build infrastructure. We got new roads, new schools, new universities, new highways, but we were missing investment in NGOs, in social security and social development. We were not missing infrastructure. We were missing investment in civil society. And civil society was so focused on this success of being in a great community that we were losing the spirit. And for some years, well, and we never were that together as when we joined European Union 2004, until another thing that is very specific to Poland, because we are one of the countries that loves to suffer. All of you know how good we are in suffering, all those uprisings we lost. All those children that were killed in the uprising, and we are so proud of those young 5-year-old boys, 10-year-old boys being killed by Germans. How we love to remind the stories about the bullets, the missing the bullets that missed us, or our grandfathers rather. how we love to tell about the bad stories about our history, Russian aggression, German aggression. Well, we never had a good geopolitical arrangement. The only one country we were trying to invade was Czech Republic, but we were not very successful in that. Well, as you know, even from Sweden, we were easy to invade and destroy as a country, but we are proud of this. And this is something that unites us. This is something that makes us strong. This is something that makes us a community. And this is something we should actually understand, accept, and remember. We are as we are. We will not be ever so happy and cheerful, but because we mentally are used to fight, used to question, and used to suffer. Even in our literature, we are calling ourselves a messiah. And, you know, messiah haven't got a great life, especially the end was pretty bad. And then Polish politics had a lot of difficulties while building institutions. They were weak, and they were very easy to be used by political forces. No matter who was in the power, the party was taking control over public media, all institutions, including constitutional tribunal, juridical system, well, every state-owned company, every council-owned company was actually dominated by the party that was apparently running country, region, constituency. So people got used to this. They got used to the fact that institutions are weak, are not serving to the benefit of people and citizens, but are serving as a benefit of the party. And this is also important to understand what happened in 2015 and why society still, in like 30%, is so silent and accepts what's happened. Then it was Smolensk plane crash that made us united again. And made us united again because we could suffer together. And we really suffered. But these emotions were very quickly used to political fight by law and justice that created a fundamental myth for them of party that is being under the threat of foreign forces, internal forces, huge conspiracy around, and party that suffers for millions, as Adam Mickiewicz was saying. Smolensk, weakness of institutions, corruption that was from the very beginning of the democratic states, and lack of civil spirit made 2015 law and justice victory possible and very strong. They got a mandate to run country alone as a party. They don't have a coalition partner. So actually they can do whatever they want. Although we didn't agree upon of them doing whatever they want. We agreed upon the fact that they are obeying the rules. They do respect constitution. But they are not a Polish phenomenon. You have them everywhere. You have Donald Trump here. French were lucky enough not to have Marine Le Pen yet. Germans were quite happy not to have AfD yet. But 2 days ago, the elections in Bavaria are showing that populists are getting strong. Hungary, well, we used to say in Poland that Pole and Hungarian are two nephews. And in Hungary, correct me if I'm wrong, there is a proverb saying that train from Warsaw is coming, meaning that there will be a change. Unfortunately, well, usually positive one. Unfortunately, train came from Budapest and ruined and inspired Kaczynski. Kaczynski, leader of the ruling party, is really controlling everything in the state, from prime minister, president, parliament, to even some members of small constituencies. That depends on his decision if they can run or not. Is this democracy? They control media. If some of you are watching Polish public television, don't do this. better don't do this because you will be back in the 70s, in dull times where propaganda was ruthless and brainless. But it works. It works in the time of fake news around the world, in times of massive access to information and without mechanisms to question the information and find the truth. So it works. And Poland is a splitted country. We are split by partitions more than 200 years ago. Some of you might have seen or remember the map of the railway communication. Russia was never developing railways because they were not interested in investment in Poland, whereas Prussia and Austria were developing the communication. So it's very easy if you were born there to travel around, to speak languages. But if you were born in the eastern part, you are more to Christian Catholicism. You know that your Jewish neighbors went missing during the Second World War, and you do live in their houses, but you pretend the house belongs to you. And this is part of unspoken history of Poland. And everyone who starts to speak about Polish Jewish history for many years was attacked, and nowadays, due to the existing law, might be even sued, because Law and Justice is against the truth in history as well, not only in media, but also in the history. So Poland is split because of the partitions. We are split for big liberal cities and the countryside. And this is the split you actually know perfectly. New York is completely different than some villages here in Michigan, because people have different visions, different opportunities, different chances. We are split for more liberal, that believe in European Union, in democracy, in openness, and to conservative Poland that attends Christian Catholic Church every Sunday and sometimes every day if Christian Catholic calendar demands that. And priest is still extremely important in some part of Poland, especially in those who were under the Russian during the Russian, not occupation, how shall I put it in English, under the Russian control during the partition times. We are divided to this society that is open, welcoming, understanding and telling the truth, and to the society that is closed and full of fears. We haven't got the crisis of identity because, as I mentioned, we are homogenic. But we had refugee crisis without accepting even one refugee. Poland, because of this big debate in 2015 and European Union decision that every state should take a certain amount of people coming from Syria, Poland was supposed to take 7,000. We had huge crises, protests, demonstrations, attacks of violence on foreigners, and we took 0 refugees. But we had refugee crisis, stronger than Austria, stronger than Germany, similar to Hungary. But Hungary had refugees and had this real problem, dilemma of people walking through the country, suffering, having their conflicts, building their walls. We haven't got this, but we had the crisis because we were easy to manipulate, because some of our citizens were afraid. What are they afraid of? Economically, Poland was never doing better. We don't have an unemployment in reality. There are 2 million of Ukrainians working nowadays in Poland, 2 million of people that are finding a job, they do have a well-paid job, and we are still missing people to work for us, for our companies, for our factories, etc. In Warsaw, unemployment rate is around 1%, which is nothing. There are some cities that are trying to bring as many foreigners as possible. Government is not accepting refugees, but strangely, they are accepting those who they were saying they are afraid the most. They are bringing people from India, Bangladesh, Pakistan to work because we need them. Our economy is getting very well. We are divided, and our government is doing everything to make us far away from European Union, because what they like in European Union is European Union funds. What they dislike in European Union is European Union values. And European Union values are liberté, fraternité, and égalité, meaning, well, you know. So they simply are disagreeing with the fundamental values of Western country. But they are agreeing on having money and benefits. And the European Union, as you know, is in a big trouble because of economic crisis, because of crisis in the Eurozone, because of refugee crisis, because of this crisis that also touches United States, the identity crisis, who we are, where we are going to, what kind of society we want to build. We don't have those problems. We haven't got the economic crisis 2008. We haven't got the refugees, and we don't have a reason to have the identity crisis, because we know we are born there in Poland in very homogeneous society. But we all feel those crises, and we feel them very strongly. Being divided, being sometimes I think sometimes simply not believing what is happening to our country. Majority of people at the moment, they think this is a business in politics, business as usual. And it's not. Because in 4 days we would be voting the direction. Are we going west or east? Are we going democracy or are we going authoritarian state? Are we going to be free as citizens, as human beings, as women, as men, as LGBT, as minorities, as atheists, as elderly, or we are going to be run by Kaczynski and his friends around the world that don't care for these values? So that was the depressive part. But Law and Justice caused some phenomena that I believe are strongly positive and will bring us to totally different world that they expect. Why? Firstly, because we as Poles, we really hate those who have power. No matter whom they are, we will rebel, we will revolt, we will fight them sooner than they expect, because we did it for so many years, so many times, during the partitions, during the uprisings, during the Second World War, during the Solidarność time. So they should remember that their time will be end soon, very soon. Let's hope this Sunday. But what had happened? Integration. I told you about the feminist protests when we were 30 of us, happy to be strong group of 30. In 2016, a prime minister, female prime minister, Beata Szydło, said that she would vote in favor of ban on abortion, complete ban on abortion, including women being imprisoned for miscarriage. Law very similar to law existing in Salvador, with one slight difference. In Salvador, for miscarriage, you go to prison for 30 years. The organization that was bringing this bill, the international organization operating also here in States, Ordo Iuris, was generous enough to understand that we are in the European Union, so just 3 years for miscarriage. And Prime Minister, female Prime Minister, said she would vote in favor. Because of that, we brought a civil bill, meaning bringing more than 100,000 signatures on liberalization of abortion to the parliament. Our law allows when you bring civil initiatives, so you have mandate from citizens to have a plenary debate. If you have a plenary debate, you are a winner of the media, because they will watch you. You are forcing members of parliament to listen to your project, and it's getting loud. And abortion is one of the topics that makes people attracted, make people involved, make people having an opinion. Our project was rejected, of course. Project on imprisoning women was proceeded. What happened? Well, I told you we are rebels. One day, remembering what happened in Iceland in the 70s, Polish women went on strike. Polish men joined them. Younger generation joined the protest. And instead of standing in the rain as 30 of us, we were in Warsaw in a group of 60,000 of people protesting, not only protesting about abortion. It was not about the abortion. It was about the patriarchy. It was about the situation of women. It was oppression. It was about the labor market for women. It was about sexual harassment. It was about all the world that was never, especially since the changes, listening to women's specific need and specific approach. So this day in Poland, all social media went dressed black because it was black protest, hashtag black protest, we were dressed black. Yes, there were some people that had problems in their work afterwards. There were institutions, especially governmental institutions, that were threatening women and men of joining the protest. But you know, nobody cared, because that was something that touched us and was something that made a lot of Polish men and women feminists. And we got something even bigger than this community inside. We got a support from, so let's say this, the Polish community, from the outside, because you were also the part of the outside protesting. And Agata told me that also in Ann Arbor you were organizing a protest to support. We got support from nearly every country around, from Russia, France, Germany, the States. Also, I remember, and this was the most touching thing I saw, it was a photo of a woman in Aleppo standing with a white piece of paper and hashtag black protest written there. That was the solidarity. Women in Iceland went on strike. The Polish community, this part of liberal Polish community, became sometimes a community because they had a common goal, especially with the younger generation. But it was not the first protest. That was, I think, the strongest, because that was the only one that we actually won. Because we still have a ban on abortion, but it's not as restrictive as they wanted. They made attempts to make the abortion ban twice during last 2 years, and twicely they failed, which is a success, and which is a positive thing, because they made many Polish women feminists. They made many Polish women strong. They made many Polish women active. And you know that in every society, if women are active, society is active. So one positive change, feminization of society. Second one, 2015, first attempt to destroy a constitutional tribunal. I will tell you now the personal story, because that was for me, I think, one of the most important days of my presence in politics and understanding the society. After the failure of a left-wing committee in the elections, we were out of parliament, but we still were on the streets protesting with parliamentary opposition. We decided that when they were attacking Constitutional Tribunal and the Prime Minister refused to print out the verdicts, which is completely ununderstandable in countries with the old democracy. How can you say, I will not print the verdict I don't like? Well, she did it. We decided to make a demonstration. By we, I'm meaning, first of all, leaders of Conservative Party, Liberal Party, Rural Party. It was me representing left, and the leader of the new movement that was just beginning its life, called Committee of Defense of Democracy. 5 of us sat together and said, okay, let's do the demonstration. Let's try to make it bigger than some other small protests we were organizing for last 2 months. We all were quite experienced on different political activities. Some of us, like those from Civic Platform, were from the big party, ruling the country for 8 years. Peasant Party with huge history of 120 years of existence. Committee of Defense of Democracy, just new organization, plus neoliberals with their weird approach on civil society, but still understanding, campaigning. So we decided to make a demonstration. And we were making bets how many people will join us. A leader of COD, Mateusz Kijowski, was saying, well, I believe it will be 10,000. My goodness, we laughed. We said, no, 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 5 it's maximum. 5 it's maximum. If it will be 5, it will be a huge success of Polish force, civil society, etc. Half an hour before demonstration, we went to this double-decker bus we had, and we had loudspeakers for 10,000, because Mateusz said it will be 10,000, so okay, we had this for 10,000, and we saw 4,000. 20 minutes before the demonstration. We believed, well, not bad, not bad. But we will not march. We will just stand in front of Constitutional Tribunal, because the very next day Law and Justice is marching. And after 15 minutes, we went again to this double-decker second floor, and we saw 50,000 of people. We saw the crowd, and we saw the crowd of European flags and Polish flags, and we saw young people, elderly people coming from, if sometimes arriving from different cities and shouting to us, hey, we are here, we are from Gdańsk, we just arrived, and we are from this part of Warsaw and that part of Warsaw. 50,000 of people in the country that was not even able to make a decent protest when we were fighting in Iraq. 50,000 of citizens. And that was not the end of our energy of protesting. Since that, we had, my goodness, nearly every week we were demonstrating for half a year. But some of you know this. We were demonstrating, and we were sometimes winning. We were sometimes winning small things, like protection of wild forest, because we also used European Union as a supporter. There were some things we completely lost, like demonstrations to protect media. But then we started to have a civil society. We started to have a community that was linking people, that people were feeling proud to be a part of, that was making people supporting each other. I remember meeting once in the bus, going to the demonstration, a group of neighbors, and they told me their story. They actually never knew each other. They were living in this block building. They never knew each other, and then once they spot each other going with Polish flags and European flags to demonstrations. So they made a small community. Those older were taking care, for example, of hot tea, if it was a cold day, and you know, sometimes in Poland is cold. Some younger were bringing big flags or the wooden parts of the flag. They were community. And of course, after 3 years of protest, protests are smaller, are not as vivid, but the spirit of community exists. People started to talk to each other. Of course, there are families that don't talk to each other because they are voting different parties. But on the other hand, I know so many people that gained new friends, new colleagues, and new braveness, and new spirit of community. And we saw this positive effect these elections. When we were planning the electional list. So how to make them open for citizens? Where shall we look for new people? And to local elections, sometimes we were able to ask women that were organizing black protest to join the list and run for mayor sometimes for a city council member. Sometimes COD activists also were joining the list. That was the first time they said, we don't trust politicians, we don't like politics, but we want change. And we know that without us, this change will not happen. I have a friend who was a liberal journalist, well, left-wing liberal journalist, radical left-wing journalist. And she's running from the committee called Koalicja Obywatelska, Conservatives, Liberals and Progressives. And she's running because she said that for many years I was preparing the plans for culture to my city, Warsaw, and no one listened. And now I realize that for so many years I was also protesting against women, lack of women in media. I was protesting against the abortion law. I was protesting because we still don't have even a registered partnership for LGBT. So if I want a change, I need to be in, not out. So she's running for a Warsaw Council, and I hope she will be successful, and she will change at least things concerning culture. But she learned that her voice matters, her presence matters. So, again, a positive thing. Second positive thing, can you believe I can find four? Third positive thing is that, as you know, and I already mentioned, Christian Catholic Church dominated public discourse. They have too many privileges in comparison to every group. They are not paying taxations, religion classes are in schools, but the religion teacher is not under the control of a headmaster. So he or she can say anything. Like in the school of my son, I was just told that kids in their 11, you are 11, were told that they shouldn't watch Disney movies because Disney was supporting Satan. I live in the city center of Warsaw, the most liberal city, and this is a public school. So can you imagine what is happening in outskirts of Krosno in Podkarpacie region? And no one can control this. No one can do anything with this teacher. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I was told by parents of those kids that their daughters, 11, said that they are refusing this religion because they still believe that princesses are more reasonable than this nun. But this is showing the state of mentality of some of priests. But to be serious, they are not paying taxations. They have privileges of owning and buying land. They even a question concerning pedophilia. You will have soon your film festival, and you will see the film Claire about the Christian Catholic Church and pedophilia. Priests are not included in the official register of pedophiles. There's a special list. And in every, well, it's not a constituency, it's, the bishop is a head, so how do you call this? In this dais, there is the only one person that knows who is in the register from entire region. So if a priest will be named as a pedophile, everyone would know who is the source of the information, if he is registered and recognized by church. So they have plenty of privileges. They are influencing political life. They were writing bills considering not only their own issues, because I don't have anything against lobbyists, and it's pretty normal that strong NGOs is lobbying for having more rights, but they were lobbying for taking my rights away. My rights as a woman, my rights as a human being. They were against liberalization of abortion law, which is obvious, but they were for imprisoning women. They were writing open letters to members of parliament to make them, to assure that they will proceed the bill to imprison women for abortion. They're influencing the programs in the schools. So sometimes you will not have regular biology, but some elements of creationism as well. So in some cities, you cannot have in vitro method as sponsored by the state, financed by the state, but you will have this natural method sponsored by the state, meaning, well, it's called naprotechnology. So if you are healthy, you will have kids, but state is paying for this information a lot of money to none that will tell you this. And people got a little bit angry. Firstly, for so many years, they started to protest against this. They are saying, we believe in God, but we don't believe the bishops. We had demonstrations quite recently in front of churches, because people are saying, we want to live in the liberal democracy. Our beliefs are our beliefs. And not necessarily we will be told what we should do and what we should believe, and especially that state should be separate from the church. And one more thing, our the president of the republic called Andrzej Duda, well, he spent his whole days kneeling. Every church he visited during the campaign, well, every village he visited a church as the very first place. And that became ridiculous to part of the society. Maybe this more liberal, but also to those conservatives, this is not acceptable because people do believe, but not necessarily they want authorities to demonstrate the beliefs, and especially they don't necessarily agree on the fact that they cannot sell their own land, whereas church can. Or they have to pay taxes, whereas church, not necessarily. And if you see how rich sometimes priests are and how poor is the region, this is causing a trouble. So third positive thing, separation of the state will become a reality. Quite soon, even conservatives from Civic Platform understood that it would make sense if church would pay taxes. Difficult, but it worked. So yes, we have civil society, we have liberalization, we have strong women. Many people understood what the European Union is all about. It's not only about money. It's about values, and it's about belonging to Western community. And Western community, it's also security. For more than 50 years, at the territory of European Union, there were no wars. And now, at the eastern border, we have Russia that is getting stronger and stronger, and is influencing all the countries that, well, but you know this. Poland is also under the threat because we are very close. So if we want to be safe, many people that would not necessarily believe in the European Union as such started to understand that this is the point of our security. This is the point not only about values, not only about money, but also security. So this is, again, positive thing that we are more talking about European Union reforming it, but being in there. Of course, not everyone. Younger generation does not remember that we were not able to travel, that we had borders and difficult controls. But with Law and Justice, they do understand what does it mean to lose a lot. So I also believe that that will be a positive change, that people will be more pro-European, more understanding, and more ready also to reform European Union, because European Union does need the reforms. And where are the hopes? Because I'm approaching to the part of your questions, but I will just tell you about the hopes. Because I believe in 3 years, Poland will be a different country, and I know that it will be different also than Jarosław Kaczyński believes it will be. So, first of all, women. Active, voting, participating, fighting, and believing in ourselves. For many years, feminist movement was saying, we are stronger together. And many women believes now in this. And also in opposition, more and more people also believes that we are stronger together. And second thing, I believe majority of you know who Karol Modzelewski is. He is one of the most important figures of Solidarność movement. With Jacek Kuroń in the 60s, he wrote an open letter to a party criticizing Communist Party. As I know him for many years, we were in the same party called Unia Pracy, like 20 years ago. I met him in the mid of 2016. So when Law and Justice was on the peak of its indoctrination attack. And Karol Modzelewski told me that in 1969 or 68, when they were writing with Jacek Kuroń this open letter, they knew two things, one for certain and one nearly for certain. First was that they will go to prison. Second, that communism will remain communism. And now that he said, and you are lucky, because you might go to prison, but not necessarily yet. And Law and Justice will not stay forever. Will stay for some years, but nothing is forever. Their power is not forever. And we as a society learned that also democracy is not forever and it's not for granted. And we know what we are fighting for. And we are fighting to regain our democracy regain civil and build civil society. So these are the hopes in the society, in women, and in the fact that in history, maniacs like we all suffer now are not forever. And it's all in our hands for how long they are. Are they for 8 years, 10 years, or just 1.5, which I strongly believe will happen. And now it's time for your questions and my short answers.
I'm sure there will be a lot of questions. We have 2 people with microphones. If you can raise your hands, but to them so that they can come to you with a microphone. You can say your name and please ask. We will get brief answers. We ask also for brief questions, very, very brief comments, because we want to leave everyone the chance to say something.
Hi, Barbara. Thank you for a very interesting talk. My name is Natalia Forat. I'm a postdoc at the Weiser Center for Emerging Democracies. And my question is to you as a politician in Poland. So as you probably travel around the country and talk to people, do you see anything that would unite, that has the potential to unite Poles other than fighting those who are in power or suffering together from external threats? Is there a positive base for unification of the country?
I will take 2 questions and then we'll try to answer, because that was a difficult one, so I need some time.
Hi, I'm Maggie Peters. I talk very loud. Okay, I wanted to ask you what is your personal prediction for upcoming wybory, samorządowe, election, and if your thoughts are positive on this subject, because I hope that we win. And they say also, someone said it was a joke, that if frequencja, if amount of people who went to see the movie Clergy would go to the polls and vote, for sure we win.
Okay, so I will briefly answer. I will try to answer both, because as society is splitted, those who believe in law and justice will go and vote. They are very mobilized. And democratic side sometimes is missing this positive view, this positive narrative. And with local elections, it's very difficult to have a huge vision where people do expect simple answers for easy problems. Well, not easy, but let's say basic problems like pavement, school, renovation, money for kindergarten. Well, we will have, well, they might have majority in votes for constituencies, for local parliaments, like, let's say, 30-something, 37, we will have around 30, 28, but we will have a possibility to make a coalition with Peasant Party. So they will be blocked. We will be winning big cities, and still I believe there are some smaller cities that strangely can be won, because I'm indeed traveling all the time. And I'm also saying that this liberal part is determined to go to vote. The problem is that not necessarily they would vote for the force that will win. Sometimes they would vote in the way they rather believe or prefer, which might give law and justice a benefit. So we will win big cities. The difference will be not as big as Law and Justice wants. They are completely trashed with those tapes from restaurant Sova. Prime Minister is having a hard time, let's say this diplomatically. Positive thing, well, there are 2 positive things I can see now. First of all is this spirit of being pro-EU. this understanding of EU. More than 80% of citizens support our presence in EU. And of course, there's a question if we use a fear that bad guys will take us away from European Union, or we can use positive version of the history of us being there. But this presence, this participation in this Western world is a positive thing. And second thing is that, of course, there will be still 30% that don't care, 20% that believe in this very nationalistic approach. But a lot of people would believe in community, in beingness together, and still would believe that institutions like independent courts do matter. And it's not about threatening them with what Law and Justice is doing, it's just showing them how dangerous it's also to them. Because it will be no matter if you are a worker suing a state-owned company, no matter if you are a worker for Law and Justice or from Civic Platform or from RASEM. You will be losing because judges will judge in favor of state-owned company. And this might unify citizens. Difficult, but possible.
I have a brief question. Is it on? Yes. Thank you very much for this amazing, both depressing and uplifting somewhat talk.
I wanted it to be uplifting.
But it is uplifting, but there was depressing facts to start with. I wanted to know what you think the role of specific policies in having peace, law and justice and power, and the role of the policy of 500 plus, Pincet plus, and how opposition parties can actually compete with things that actually matter for people. So it seems that law and justice is very successful in having a nationalist narrative around suffering and around things that appeal to people, and they use symbols that resonate with people on the one hand, and they have policies that appeal to a class of people that actually need support. That other parties haven't been able to answer to. So I wonder what's your position on this and what your vision for actually helping families, answering issues that the working classes face.
Well, 500 plus, it's not a left-wing program. It's a program that is directed to traditional conservative family. Single mother or single father with one child will never get benefits out of this. And the Deputy Minister of Social Affairs asked, what shall single mother do? Answered publicly, well, she should find a husband and have a second child. Because it's not about supporting the poorest. It's about building a traditional society. No one who is conscious and responsible would say we will cancel 500 plus. No, we will reform it. I don't see the reason why millionaires should be benefiting out of 500 plus, whereas a single mother cannot benefit out of this with one child. So it's not for children, actually. But we have to explain it and show to citizens how they can benefit out of the program that was, well, nothing unusual. And redistribution is normal. But then showing the injustice of this program can help. I am against competing. I am in favor of doing policies that really will target citizens. So we are not touching 500 plus, but we are preparing a lot of other things like hot meals in school, which matters and integrates, and it's for everyone. Like public transportation for free for children, like senioral policies, like building kindergartens and preschools, which are important, especially in the rural area. But firstly, we should show what Law and Justice is doing, because they are not, yes, 500 plus matters, but at the very same time, the prices of electricity, water, gas, food went up. So at the moment now, people are not benefiting as much as 2 years ago of having 500 zlotys. And this program will not last in this shape forever. They should reform it, and they are not able because we are lacking money in the system of social security. So I don't think voters of liberal side would need us to compete with them on giving, well, let's give 1,000 zlotys. No, it's showing how we can change and reform entire system to make people poor, less poor, but with more dignity. Because at the moment, if you are poor, you go to the social, you are going to the social security department, and you have to prove that you are poor. If you are old, you are queuing in a hospital, and you have to prove that you are poor and you cannot afford for certain things. So what they were saying is that they were bringing dignity back. We have to show that we also know how to bring dignity back, not with slogans and not directing money to the kids of millionaires, but also to the elderly people, to the rural areas, to the single mothers and fathers, etc. And dignity is extremely important for everyone, also for LGBT. Also for women, also for unemployed, also for those who don't believe law and justice. So let's talk more about dignity, and let's build a real social security service instead of one program that brings immediate effect of having more money in the pocket, but does not bring the effect that was planned, to have more babies. For this we have in vitro. You had a question, and then.
I would like to hear some more about your recent decision to, you already know where I'm going, to join together with Koalicja Obywatelska and to work together with this broad coalition that includes some people with whom you disagree on many profound points. The other argument one hears is that the path forward, for the left at least, is to try to establish a base that can represent the, whatever it is, 20% or so of the population that would potentially be there for a vibrant leftist party, even if it hasn't in practice so far. You made another choice to work together in the context of a broad coalition, and I wonder what led you to that decision.
Well, as I started with saying that we love failures, I will talk about my failure. Firstly, around 15% of Poles would consider voting left. Our voting system is based on method D'Hondt, which gives a privilege to a bigger party. When a coalition in left-wing coalition in 2015 lost votes, the benefits so extra members of parliament were from the right wing. And my failure is that for last 3 years I was trying to bring left together. Twicely with Save the Women project. Firstly, can we imagine, I asked, it was open call for everyone to join a common project pro-choice. And I know that all left-wing parties do have this in their programs. This was an open call. There were no specific phone calls, no open letters, no invitations, an open call. Who wants to join? Let's meet and join. Green Party answered, Feminist Party answered. Green Party in the polls, it's now like 0.3. Feminist Party never mentioned, but they are good and strong. Neither SLD nor Razem responded to that. SLD, moreover, said that they would prefer to have referendum and started to collect the signatures 3 days after we announced our civil bill, which was not exactly what you would expect a party to compete in this moment. Second time, I asked them, I called them, invited them, they joined the committee, we were collecting signatures together. Although people from Razem and people from SLD were standing sometimes when they were seeing each other, when they would sit in different parts of the room. They were not even able to stand together with one stand collecting signatures. When there were 4 people, 2 Razem, 2 SLD, they would never stand together. They are simply, as Razem and SLD, not able to join ever, because the SLD is a post-communist party at the moment turning back to their voters with communist sentiments, because law and justice is harming them violently. So they are directing to their past, referring to their past. To be honest, I don't believe you firstly win the elections on the past, because you have to win them in the present. So you are telling about dreams, not about the history only. Secondly, how you can defend strongly with 100% of sureness what happened during the communism, how you can defend communism. I mean, this is not possible to say that it was great and we do support the previous regime. No, we don't. And Razem is as a party made to show that they are different social democracy than SLD. So they cannot work together. This merge will never happen. This is the first thing. Second thing is the personalities. If SLD would be different, I would find a possibility to work with them. But now they believe that the only one way they will win elections is to go under their own flag. So for these elections, local elections, 15%, let's say, of voters. Greens are running separately, Razem is running separately, SLD is running separately. Greens are like 0.3, Razem are like 2.3, SLD is around 8%. SLD might have some representatives in some constituencies. How we can implement policies without being even present in the local governments, how we can implement policies not being present in the city councils. And my decision was also based not only about calculation, but also about the importance. We are here and now. We cannot wait for a knight on the white horse that will come and save the left, because voting is next week and there is no knight coming. There is no white horse coming, and people need to vote and need to say if we are in favor of democracy or we are in favor of Kaczynski. And of course we differ. I am progressive social democrat. Civic platform are conservatives and neoliberals are neoliberals, but we share the same values concerning European Union, concerning democracy, concerning stability of institutions, and concerning human rights. We can, of course, discuss how deeply we will go to those questions concerning women body, LGBT issues, secularity of the state, but we share same values concerning democracy, role of state, and role of the institutions. And it's not a business as usual, those elections. These are the elections about the future, because if we would lose them dramatically, first of all, local governments are taken completely over. Left wing does not have any chance to implement policies because we are out. And you know what happened to parliament if we are out. And thirdly, if we would lose those elections, the others will be lost as well because people would lose hope. And if left would go splitted, and the left is going splitted, I don't see the point of pretending it's okay. It's not okay, because it is too important at the moment to fight for fundamental issues like democracy, like presence in the European Union, like independence of juridical system. And sometimes it's better to go together with conservatives. And my experience I told you about in 2015 was that when we were organizing those protests, people were there, voters of Razem, Greens, SLD, Civic Platform, Rural Party, everyone was there, except leadership of Razem and SLD. Why? Because they still believe it's business as usual. We can split, we can divide, we can differ, but to have those differences, to fight for abortion, to fight for taxation, for different social projects, we need to have a democracy. We need to have a parliament that works and judges that are independent. Without this, that will be a very nice, sorry to say, academic discussion. And politics, it's not only about academia, it's about the real life. So yes, that was difficult, but it was possible, whereas merging left, I believe, is mission impossible. I will be shorter now.
It's my turn. Hey, so my name is Andrzej Wierzbicki, and I want to ask you about the destruction of institutions that you described. And do you have a plan how to fix them? Fix them in a way that does not perpetuate the vicious cycle of takeovers by various parties, but establish the institutions that would be stable in the future?
Well, it's a very difficult question because you can have plan, but you also have to have a good people. We failed not because we haven't got strong institutions. We failed, and we were failing for many years because people that were in power were not a good people. You can have a constitutional tribunal elected by politicians, but still judges can be, as I heard until last month in state, can be independent. But still, I believe it's possible. To be honest, there are plans how to rebuild the constitutional order. There are plans how to rebuild juridical system without violating those laws that do exist. And it is done by lawyers that are specialized in constitutional law. But I will not talk about details. First of all, because I don't want Law and Justice to know how we are going to do this. And secondly, because I'm not a lawyer, so if I would start, I would mix it up totally. But then, always, it's not only a strong institution. It's always about people that believe that strong institutions are important. And this is what you are facing here in state. You have the most stable institutions, but then you have a maniac that is able to destroy them. And how can you control? Elect the best? Well, let's try. But you cannot elect the best if you don't elect the best that would be electing. This is the task, to bring good people to politics. By good, I'm meaning those who are going there because they have the ideals, not businesses to do. Was it a good answer?
Hi, my name is Danuta Sitarczyk. I'm from Auckland University. My question will be a little bit longer. When Poland was changing the system in the 80s, and when Polish people fighting for democracy have been tricked by communists who placed the traitor and informer Wałęsa on the presidential position. I was there. I was fighting for liberation of Poland. We were played again, so communists took over our democratic government, and we were tricked by putting abortion to the Senate and Sejm and Senate. I remember every day there was a discussion about abortion, for, pro, against. There was nothing else about changing Polish system, Polish economics. There was nothing there. Communists play us again, and they divided the country. They divided women. And then ever since then, I left the country in the 90s. Ever since then, we women are played with the abortion. Whenever something important is going on, we are put on the streets. I'm Catholic, but I was not, for me, yes. Okay, so right now, what are the chances to win against the country who is like 80% Catholic with the abortion laws and plans? Can't we just, I like you. I think you're very intelligent. And we don't have anybody to vote for. And yes, we don't have anybody to vote for because I don't feel like I don't feel like abortion will be the main point of my candidate. There's so many things to go on. And you are going back to PO, women who are well educated, don't have anybody in Poland right now. How do you see that?
I will try to
I think she
answer.
can
First of
answer.
all, I don't believe abortion is the main topic in Poland, and it was in 90s. I remember this quite well, as my mother was very deeply involved in this topic, and it was just about referendum. But those days, in the early 90s, I remember much stronger my grandmother complaining about the reform of pensionary system, that she was suffering strongly. I remember firms and companies being closed because of neoliberal reforms. So, of course, in the media, sometimes they are putting the topic that divides society easily, but it was never a main topic for anyone. Because every party that believes, as I believe, that abortion is a fundamental question for not about abortion, but about the state, how the state sees the woman. But it's not a core of the program. The core of the program is security, is social issues, taxation, etc., but also trust. I didn't went to PO, but I believe those days we have to vote for democracy or not for democracy. We have to vote for people we trust on the lists, but we are not voting for specific political agenda now. We are voting for democracy. That's why I did what I did, because otherwise we can have brilliant programs and the best women politicians and the best men politicians fighting, combating, etc. But we will not even have a space to talk about this because we will be out of parliament and out of the streets. For last 3 years, we had streets to protest. Nowadays, it's more and more oppressive law. Police is blocking more and more demonstration where people, especially women, are threatened. So these are the topics that I believe are important, should be easily fixed. I believe that question of abortion should be done very quickly with one bill saying this is the right of woman and she will decide. That's it. That would end the topic. There are many important issues we should concentrate about, and yes, every party is doing this and is fighting for this. But without democracy, we will be forced to forget about all individual and human rights, including abortion, including LGBT, including secularity of the state, but also adding to that many other laws that makes us strong Europeans. Okay.
My name is Alina Klin, and you partially answered my question, which is the question about the future of the left in Poland. But if you could elaborate a little bit more about this. You said so far that you're not very optimistic as far as left really joining together, maybe forming one party. And my other question would be, could you tell us a little bit more, how is it to be in Poland a leftist and a feminist? Because both of these were very, very dirty words for like decades.
Yes. Okay, I will take the second one.
Is there another final question?
Dzień dobry, Basia.
Dzień dobry.
Looking into the future, hope reigns eternal. Do you see any chance of Russia and the Ukraine joining the European Union? And if not, what would be the obstacles? Dziękuję.
Oh my goodness. And for very end, the toughest questions. I've spent 10 years at the seminars called Future of the Left. And the answer is very, very long and difficult because, and I will try to put it in the nutshell. The problem of the left wing, the social democracy, is not a problem of Poland. It's a problem of entire social democracy. It's UK, Germany, France, all Western European countries are having the same problem. That majority of social democratic agenda was already fulfilled. These parts concerning labor market, concerning equality, but specifically labor market. States are different. But in Europe, this is the reason of the crisis, that social democracy is now protecting its achievements. Instead of being revolutionary, proposing changes, going openly against the system, we are becoming a protectionist of the system. So it's not very tempting not to be revolutionary and to protect, because it's more up to conservative way. And Poland is very, very similar. Though we have this burden of communism, and the strongest party is a post-communist party. So for many people that believe in social democracy, in inequality, in justice, in social justice, voting for post-communist is not acceptable. And where in countries like Czech Republic, social democracy was very successful because they were not post-communist. So this is partly the answer, what I'll see the future of social democracy. If social democracy will really be brave enough to face the dilemmas of labor market, including automatization, robotization, migration. How to answer the questions of migration, openness, knowing the fears also of a working class, the labor market that in Poland is great, but in many countries is shrinking. But these are the questions left should define and answer. We are missing new Karl Marx. We are missing, as a left, new ideology that would also be attractive to those who are still living under oppression of capitalism. But social democracy is not fighting capitalism any longer. It's trying to reform it. And I don't believe it's something wrong in reforming capitalism. The question is how deeply we are going to reform them, or how deeply the capitalism is reforming social democracy. So for Polish left, I see the perspective, a good one. But firstly, we need to have democracy. But in, let's say, 10 years, we can rebuild our world. And here I really believe that the social democracy has a special role for women to reconstruct the world, because we are living in the patriarchy. Working hours are still in the same old system that man is going to work and then is coming back extremely tired. Whereas we as women at home, we do have children to take care of, usually, because it's still like this. Elderly people, our parents, grandparents to take care of. And we can, especially in Europe, we can afford the bigger reforms to make a system more flexible also for women. So what social democracy should do now, should emancipate women stronger. And that would be our future, not only in Poland, but also answer to the questions of labor market, answer to the questions of basic income. Is it a good tool? I'm not sure. But at least it's an attempt to an answer. Stop being afraid of having dreams about the society really built on equality. Stop having fears against people coming from different countries, but learn how to integrate them and what to do. What is the fundament? Are the fundaments our values of equality, or there is a primate of religion? For me, the answer is easy, but not necessarily for everybody, also in our social democratic family. So these are the important questions we should answer. And in Poland, if we would regain the democratic framework, there will be a huge space for left, because plenty of things from the left-wing agenda concerning individual human rights, freedoms, etc., are part of the agenda, and we are seeing how we as the social democrats are pushing also the conservatives and liberals to understand that education is not a privilege. Education is a social justice, that freedom of live with whom you love is not a privilege, it's a social justice, etc. So our role is to move the world and to give the answers for 21st century, including labor market, including women in the labor market, and including role of individual in the society. But this needs Karl Marx, so someone really brilliant. And the question about Russia. I would love Ukraine to be a part of European Union. And I hope one day, soon, Ukraine will be ready. There are certain criteria they have, not necessarily are interested in the moment in fulfilling these criteria, and not necessarily Ukrainians, especially the authorities, the government of Ukraine, see that joining European Union at the moment would benefit Ukrainian society. But I believe Ukraine should be and will be a part of, let's say, big European community. Not necessarily huge enlargement again, because I'm not sure if European Union already tackled all problems of the enlargement they had with us and then with Romania, Bulgaria. But Ukraine should be more integrated with Russia. As long as Putin is there, I don't see any chances and don't see any interest of Russia joining any other community than those we know from the past. And then the question is, a Russian society would be interested in joining European Union and being a part of community, or prefers this imperial approach that is now represented by Putin? Because you have to grow up to democracy, to being a part of community. And I don't have a knowledge about Russian society to answer that question, but seeing Putin, I cannot imagine him being in European Union, and I cannot imagine European Union gatherings with him. And let's better try to focus on those part of Russian society that still believes in values of democracy, and we should support them as strong as we can, as we did support Ukrainians, and I hope one day they will be a part of the family.